everything.
Liam's trying to bring us then kicking into the conversation.
My position is even if God exists, I'm not sure I would recognize him as a moral authority.
Lisa, stop being racist, the camera's rolling.
Fine. Okay, come here, Liam. Come here. Let's stop about this. Sorry, bro.
I want to bring up something. What do you guys think about race as a social construct?
Yeah, social construct.
Now, do you think that it's strange that... Wait, let me finish. Do you think it's strange that none of us has given consent to be called what we are called? For example, you haven't been given consent from the government to be called a black person. Me as a white person, and you guys, and you as a Jewish
Yes,
person.
I can remember you. I know you, man. We've spoken before, right?
Yeah, we have.
Yeah, fucking
But why
So
are
do
you
you-
asking for government consent when
No,
it's
no,
not
but-
necessary?
What do you mean it's not necessary?
I also didn't consent to being called a ginger.
Ginger.
Nobody
Yeah.
would.
I did that. My hair colour is ginger.
Hair colour is ginger.
I did. It's a descriptor.
No. But what I'm saying is,
Yeah, just go on.
it's changed over time.
Okay.
In what way?
So, for example, white people, like, what people refer to white people as today, that's changed over time. So, you know, when you see people and they're saying, oh, that person's a white person, who decided this? It was the social scientists.
Yeah.
Well, it's just a
Well,
it's a useful shortcut.
look,
It's a
if
useful
you look at
shortcut.
me, if you look at me,
Which doesn't
you
imply
can
anything.
wait, guys. Let's
Unless
stop
it's-
one at a time.
One at a time. One at a time.
Other stuff is said
Sir,
at one time. Sorry. Oh, all right. We're talking to the genius.
Okay, if we look at me, for example, I am not white in the sense
As
that
the
the
colour.
color white
Well,
does, you know.
For the purpose of the
But
conversation, you're white.
no, but look. I am pinkish, yellowish,
I'd say you're more
palish.
yellow, more yellow
Something
than
like that. Yeah, yellowish, like you can
Pretty
see
much
pink
smoking.
here. This guy, for example, he's not black. He's dark brownish, like something like that. Or you. You're
African sunset.
you are paler than I am, and you are more pink than I am, and yet we're still
Yeah, but you're
both called
you're
white.
both called white.
Yeah,
I'm not.
But this is
it's
interesting.
the basic
Yeah,
description.
but you've asked him a question about social
Yeah, but-
meanings. He's gone straight into the analysis of
But it's
particular
related.
words.
Well, it's
It is
just
slightly
observation,
things.
basic
it's slightly
observation.
related. Yeah, but who decided this observation?
If you move around this way, then I can.
Who
Yeah,
decided
open
this
up, guys,
observation?
open up. Who decided? Dude, it's basic
You didn't,
observation.
yeah, but you didn't decide it.
Okay, the names of the colors, is that what you're arguing against? We should call the colors as we call the colors.
Or
My-
do you not like the categorization?
My color comes
No, but
close
why
to
is it
white.
vocabulary?
That's why I'm called
Why is it
white.
categorized?
His color
Because
comes close to black.
The
That's
way
why
we
he's
make
called
sense
black.
of the way we make sense of the
problem with that?
world is by creating categories of things.
Yeah.
That's how we structure existence. That's how we understand the world. So if somebody wanted to describe the two of us, because we look visually different, they'd need a category to put us both into. And you can categorize at different points in different ways, and that's what you're asking. But the fact that we need to understand the world, we need categories to put people into. And things into. It's not just it's cars and
Just a
vans.
second.
Yeah, it's got-
Those
it's
categories
factories
have
and-
changed over time. For example, a
But
long
that's
time
because
ago,
society evolves.
a long time
words
ago.
change.
Wait, just a second. Long time ago, Italians weren't classified as white people by certain European nations. It's true. But now they are.
They are.
Italian.
One of the big reasons they did that was because
Do
the
you know
Ku
the
Klux
early?
Klan
Do
needed
you know
to raise
the,
their numbers.
do you
so
know
they
the
changed
early
definition.
German social scientists? They would consider people from, do you know, the Gulf of Aden region of Africa
Yeah.
as Caucasian. But we know that today that's not the case. But they considered that.
Right, so all we're saying is meaning
same.
change
Well,
over time.
well, everyone
it's
accepts
very
that
much open
categorizations
to
change.
interpretation.
Let's
But why
just
have
go
they
let's just go to the
changed?
conclusion.
And what is the
It's
purpose
very
of
much
these categorizations?
It's
Is
very
it-
much
No,
based
the
on interpretation. and
categorization
interpretations
is
are
very
different.
simple. The categorization is so we can make sense of the world around us, so we can observe and communicate about
Yep.
what we see. That's all it is. Those change because human societies evolve. The complexities, the nuances are maybe brought out more in one generation than in a previous generation. There can be political reasons. One of the reasons that they changed the definition in America if it was white was because they needed the Irish and the Italians to boost the numbers of the Ku Klux Klan, basically, and they were allowed into the KKK.
It's possible, it's possible.
So people's definitions change.
The Irish-
Imagine
the Irish
this,
were
imagine
majority
this. We have a
Catholic.
person-
The KKK was a Protestant-only organisation.
No, and then they changed it. No,
Guys,
no
let's
Catholics could
not
get in.
talk about the Ku Klux
what
Klan.
was
We're
that?
talking about something
But
slightly
it-
different.
So, like,
Let's not
Let's
divert the
say what he
conversation
has
to
to
the
say.
KKK.
Yes.
Yeah, go ahead.
So I think it's a as you said, a way to, you know, like let's say there was a crime case and the police has to make a call. You know, they could easily say he's a pink suspect, and I think it's useful for that. But I also think it's not useful
pride.
for segregation purposes. It's not useful in that aspect. Like when people start saying, these people are dirty, these people are inferior.
I think they're two
No,
separate
no,
things.
they're
That's
two separate
racism.
things. Yeah, that's
Or like
racism.
prejudice.
We're talking
And
about
it's just-
No, but he's got a
categorization.
point. He has a point. We
Yeah.
need to be able to define people. Like, for example, imagine a person comes who doesn't know any of us, doesn't know any of our names. And the person says, okay, I agreed with the black guy on what he said. Because they need to give some kind of quality of him
And
that they immediately see.
But why is race the
Wait,
primary
let me finish.
I mean, you're right, with me, they could say the
because it's
beautiful one.
immediately visible. Because that's what distinguishes him the most visually.
But
from
why
the
not
other-
the tall guy or the short guy?
Dude,
Something
we're
like that.
almost the same height. Come on.
But-
It's very
no,
difficult
I
to
don't
tell
think
who's
it's-
actually
No, I think
taller.
it's a good point because what
He's
he's
making a
saying
good
is he's
point.
saying there's a
He's making a
culture behind that colour because people evolved in different areas of the world and they evolved with different cultures. And so Jews may have been dispersed among different nations, but they retained a Jewish culture and a Jewish ethnicity and a Jewish identity. So it's not just, you're right, it's not just a categorization. It's what, because you can categorize on height, but that doesn't mean you can categorize on gender, and people do categorize on gender. But it's because of the culture that's behind those.
Guys, you're diverting this to a direction it shouldn't go. Now let me just finish.
it's
If they
quite
say
true
the
that there's
tall
a
guy,
value
they would
system
probably
between,
refer to him
skin
because
colour.
he's the tallest.
It's an obvious
If
fact.
they say the tall guy when referring to him, it's very confusing because he's about the same height as me and
What
you.
about the clothing he's wearing?
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, they can characterize by the clothes, for
You understand that our
example.
cultural biases influence the directions we have, right? So if we grow up in a society that says you're white, you're Chinese, you're this, we get used to that. But there are certain environments where that's not the case. So they don't think in that way.
Well, yeah, but we shouldn't adapt ourselves to those toxic environments. We should see race
in
as something
societies
more trivial,
where it's
as a quality. For example, the person wants to say that he or she disagrees with him, for example,
Right.
and they will say, okay, I need to say the tall white guy, but how will I describe it? Imagine that we're wearing the same clothes. The person will need to describe more qualities. Like, for example, if the person disagrees with me in reality, they will say the blonde guy, because he's not blonde and I'm blonde, and we're the same height more or less. We're both white.
That's not race though.
Huh?
Blonde's not
Yeah, but
It
it's
also-
a quality. It's a quality comparable
why
to
does race have to be the primary quality?
It's also a very different. I'll give you
because
an
it's more
example.
visible than the blonde or brunette.
I'll give you an example from my
It's much more
professional
visible.
career. I was once so afraid of being tarred as a racist, I tried my hardest to describe a colleague without mentioning the fact they were
Yeah,
black.
yeah.
And so, like, instead of
What
just
did you say?
saying,
What did you say?
I said he sits by such and such, he's in the finance team, he's a good lad. Like, if there was only one black guy in there, if I'd have said, the black guy, it would have been fine. But
Say the handsome guy.
Yeah, exactly. You see, this is what I mean. We shouldn't feel like we're walking on eggshells
agree,
all
I
the
agree,
time.
I
We should,
agree.
interpret it in a more chill way, in a more laid back
But do you
way,
feel?
right?
Do you feel that? Do you feel that way? As Europeans,
Sometimes it
are
doesn't
white,
happen.
so whatever. If that's
we're all
Sometimes it doesn't
European, so
happen,
let's say
but,
white is
well,
better.
well, sort
Because
of.
you're European.
I'm a European citizen.
I'm a European citizen.
Right.
I'm a
What,
European.
then, but
There's no
we're
such thing as
talking white.
European
You don't mean the fact that we're
Of
European, you
individual
mean the fact that we're white.
Sorry
Well,
about that.
so
Citizen.
with the black and white thing, we would say African, or European, or Asian.
so
Oh, I
Why?
think that's more accurate term.
well, European, right?
Nah, but my DNA goes back to the Middle East.
Well, 3%.
No, not much more than
All of our
3%. So you
DNA
can
goes
say
back
it's
to
non-Jewish Middle Eastern.
Right.
To be honest, I think that's a more accurate way of referring to black and white.
Well, me personally, I can call you white. You
African or
can, if I called you European and say call me white, I call you white. If you say call me Jewish, I call you Jewish. It wouldn't matter because you identify by all three, right?
Can I call you black?
If you want.
Is there a problem with me calling you black?
Depends the tone. Depends the tone. If you go that.
No, ignoring moral judgment, is black an incorrect descriptor
No,
of
you
you?
could call it. You could call it.
Yeah.
But then we have to understand the history of how we got here, innit?
But then why be so diplomatic and call us European?
Well, it depends on what I'm talking to. So, just like when we come here to Speaker's Corner, so many people have so many different ideologies and stuff. You try to be catering and understanding so conversations can flow.
But I think this is one of the problems with this. We're all terrified of just
I'm
stating
not.
the
I'm
obvious.
not.
My
So,
original question
I'm not. I don't
was-
think you should.
Okay.
Can we get back to
Space
the
for it to
original
go.
Go
question?
ahead.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, so well, my original question was why was race created?
Oh, for white supremacy.
wasn't
There you go.
Is that what you actually believe?
Yeah, from my research, for the most part, a big part of how we define a race now does come from transatlantic slavery and so forth.
So,
So
like,
in
so
ancient-
wait, just a second. So the terms like white and black.
Yeah, in that context. I'm not talking about racism. I'm talking about the black and white narrative that we know today. This was put in law, as in black people couldn't own land, so we have to define black people. White people could own land.
But
Is
if
that
you
what I'm
read
Yeah, but
Arabic,
those
if you read
laws no longer
Arabic,
exist.
you read Jewish, you read Egyptian, you read all ancient societies, they all use racial descriptors.
saying? No, but we're talking about this concept
white
of
and
black and white.
So
Were they
Like white and
racial?
black.
but white
Well,
and black.
they
So
actually- was it- they said-
I
Muhammad
don't
is
think
described
anybody's
as having
separating
white
the
there's
world
legs.
in black and white.
Because
I think nobody's
their,
doing that.
their
Not even the
version of
racists
white
are doing that.
wasn't generally like a white
they
person.
have a
It was
concept
like a
of
person
race?
who's a bit lighter
That's what you
skinned.
say. That's what you say.
But it wasn't actually a social construct. You would
It was absolutely a
No, it
social
wasn't.
construct. As an example,
No, it
in
wasn't.
Egypt,
When somebody says-
in Egypt they use the word kushim. And it was a Kushite. In Hebrew they use the word kushim to describe slaves. The Kushite were a people. They're from Africa.
I'm specifically referring to your.
And it was described by skin
I'm
tone.
specifically referring about the Prophet Muhammad. When they say the Prophet
you Muslim, by the way?
the
Yeah,
Prophet Muhammad looked white.
Okay, let's move away from
Okay,
Islam
wait,
because you'll just
no, but
defend
just a
this,
second. No.
scripture.
Just
Well, why did you
bring that
mention
up?
it?
I didn't realise
Yeah,
you
you
were Muslim.
mentioned
I
it,
didn't
so it's
realise you
your
were
fault.
Muslim. Sorry.
Whatever.
But
Let's
what I'm
move on.
saying is, they don't mean he was a white person, that he was lighter skinned.
But that's
a
just
lighter
your
skinned
subjective
Arab.
reading.
No, it's not subjective. That's what it generally is accepted as.
Well, what if Muhammad was black?
There would be no problem.
I thought he
Well,
was.
if you-
Was he not?
We're getting
No,
off
he's
the subject.
I don't know.
I
I
think
don't know.
he's described
The
as
hadith
white in
describes
I don't
the,
know.
as having
in,
white
in
legs,
some
white
Muslim
skin.
texts.
No, I know.
They speak about the paleness of
Like,
his
why-
leg, the
why-
paleness of his
why was
hips,
it created?
something about that, but I'm not sure. I don't
Well,
know
I
where
just
that
think
comes
all I'm
No,
saying
no, yeah,
is racial
the-
descriptors
what we have today.
is the obvious way of describing
eugenics.
someone, so it exists in ancient
So what are we
society.
talking about here?
So I-
Yeah,
look,
what are we
look,
talking about?
Can I
Yes.
just say, as far as the ancient Egyptians, I don't think they had a concept of races. They had a concept surely of vanquished peoples, like the Kushim, who became slaves because of a military defeat or whatever.
They definitely did have the concept
they
of
didn't use-
race.
did
They depicted people as having darker skin.
Exactly.
To, you know,
Yeah,
And
but
different
that's not the
features,
same-
different
that's not the
facial
same as the
features.
concept. Okay, they're describing people of different skin color, but that they didn't have a concept of race. They didn't use a term race. That race is a modern concept. Okay.
Okay, wait. So,
disagree.
sure.
There
Whatever.
were differences between people in the ancient times, but they would have been linguistic. They would have looked different. They would have different
So
cultures.
if you read European writers who were describing Africans, they would describe them as primitive based on they would categorize them on skin color.
Okay, but most
Before the racial
What's
side.
primitive got to do with skin color?
No, they would
No, that's
categorize them.
but
That's,
categorize
what
them.
he's saying.
If you
You
look
just
at
said primitive.
if you look at
No,
African,
that's what I wouldn't say that. They would say that. European
Well,
writers. I'll
you
give you
said-
some examples.
No, he's
rather
saying
than me.
what they said.
if you look
He's
at
not
African
saying that's
cultures,
what I
there's
think.
three very ancient warrior cultures. You've got the Maasai, you've got the Zulu, and you've got the Tuareg. All of them have derogatory terms for the people around them. Different colours, different cultures, who they traded, but they defeated in battle. So another aspect of this is if you've got the most common way for people to become slaves in the ancient world was for them to be defeated and then taken into slavery to pay debt or whatever. And that's not the same as race.
Yeah, this gentleman's correct.
Well, not only
From what I
Africans
can
have
see.
that. In
Yeah,
Europe, they
right,
do the
that's
same
it.
thing.
Of
Like,
course.
for example, the English call the Welsh sheepshagger, they call the Scottish whatever other things.
Yeah, but that's
There
name
are
calling.
different,
Now you're trying to
name
use
calling.
some
you know,
terminology.
name calling in different sub-races, different ethnicities.
Yeah,
There's
but
always
those are
that.
like jokes. So that isn't really for
Are you saying you
No,
want
no.
to dismantle the concept of race? Is that what you're saying?
Not really dismantle. I want to understand why was it established.
I thought, well, from my, if you disagree, white supremacy played a big part of it in the transatlantic slave
course it
trade
did.
and writing laws down. White people was part of the law. So if you're white, you could own this land and vote. If you were black, so that means black people had
So
to
it's
be. Yeah.
primarily for supremacy
Well,
and
laws.
dominance.
Yeah, laws.
Okay.
You know, like white supremacy wasn't something that non-white people came up with.
Did
It was something that
racism
white
exist
people
in
came up
Africa before whites came over there?
with. Well, yeah, but it wouldn't have been seen as white supremacy, would it? There would have been discrimination, but the concept of white supremacy, it wouldn't have existed there because until they brought it along, right?
Again, you could.
I don't think it
you
was
could
only
prob-
the
you could
whites. I
probably
think
say
many
that
different
negative
people discriminated against in
existed
different
Africa.
races.
But I said
But
white
it's the
supremacy, not
Europeans that
discrimination.
introduced the
I said white
idea
supremacy, not
that
discrimination.
Yeah, but white
age, skin
supremacy is
colour
just
is by
another kind of
definition
discrimination.
It's a much
superior
more,
to
it's a
all
much more
others.
effective way. That's that we still.
What do you mean
And that's where
Well,
race
it's the most
comes in.
prominent racism I've seen
I would
today.
agree with
Sorry.
What? Because whites had a big
probably
big colonial
their
empires,
empires.
and the others
Yeah,
didn't.
so today we're putting emphasis on this black and white dynamic because of the legacy of power and how it went. Like I said, had the Europeans not dominated the way they did, we wouldn't be using those words today. We'd be using something else. For example, if Germany won the war, things would be different, right?
Well, we would probably speak
Well,
German
Yeah, exactly, right. So
if we lived.
You'd be speaking German. I wouldn't be here, mate.
yeah, exactly, right.
Sprechen Sie
So,
Deutsch?
He wouldn't be here either.
so white supremacy was a concept that many nations practice. it made sense for them at the time to do
I
that.
probably wouldn't be here. Mr. European, man.
Where you
Sorry.
from? Where you from?
I'm from Ukraine.
Are you Ukrainian Jew?
He wishes he was a Ukrainian.
Oh,
Jew.
hey,
You probably would still be here. I don't know. You probably would. Depends
bring
who
your
you
rabbi here. I'll convert.
Yeah. So this is what I'm saying. It's because it was successful. Had it have not been successful, we would be calling ourselves something else.
Something else.
So, but all I'm trying to say is very simple.
Go ahead.
Racism existed in ancient Greece.
Discrimination, of course. Yeah.
No, racism.
Well, see,
They did use racial descriptors to describe
but there was
non-Greeks.
no concept of race.
Yeah.
We need to understand about the modern concept
Modern
of race.
concept.
Guys, I
From the
disagree.
18th century.
It's a biological
Sorry, from the
concept.
19th century.
No, I actually agree with
It's
it.
a dead
This
end.
is the absurdity
It's a
of this
dead end in
conversation.
biological
I
science.
know.
I can
It brings
agree.
in eugenics.
I'll give you examples
Okay,
of
there's no
people using
eugenics in
black
ancient
as a skin colour
Yeah.
as a descriptor of people.
Right. Okay. And I think I tried to explain that by people being defeated in a battle, and then the warrior class or the victor group basically having derogatory terms for the people who've been taken into slavery as a result of the defeat.
No, but not just taking it. So Greeks, as an example, saw their society as superior to other societies, and they would use racial descriptors, skin colour, to
Well, the original word for slave comes from the Greeks, and they took the Slavs into slavery. That's
I
where the
disagree.
term
Sure, you don't
comes
believe
from.
that?
I disagree.
That's what people push for. You don't believe that?
that's
I
it.
don't believe that.
No? Are you
I do
Slav?
not,
You're not
I do
Slav,
not
are you?
believe.
It's not
No, I
a
am.
belief, it's a matter of
I mean, I'm Ukrainian. Obviously, I do have Slavic blood.
So you might be the
Maybe
true
not
slave.
only Slavic blood. Sorry.
So you,
What do you
you're
mean
from
blood?
true slave,
What do you mean?
so-
We all have the same blood. What
No,
is-
look,
what is
I
this?
think,
you have different blood.
Sorry?
You have different blood. What is this?
He's talking about him being a Slav.
What do you mean? No, I said I have some Slavic blood in me.
No, you don't have any Slavic blood.
No,
I mean,
look,
you know-
genes,
It's a
Slavic
language.
genes.
It's a
Do you
language.
prefer it like
It's a
that?
language group, is it not?
It's
very
not only
important.
language, it's also about genetics. Like Ukrainians are more closely related to Russians or to Belarusians than, for example, to Romanians or to Hungarians.
Right.
Hungarians are very different, by the way. They-
Do you think one of my reasons why I think you mentioned supremacy,
Yes.
coming back to the different races, do you think part of the reason is also? Do you think part of the reason is also for the division of mankind?
Well, it
So-
was useful to divide people.
So we
to a
stop
certain
looking
extent.
at each other as human beings, but we look at each other as
no,
you're just this
you're
race
wrong.
and you're just that race.
No, that's not how. There is not an evil group of people that manipulate all of society so that we can view each other in different racial
But then,
codes.
but then,
Yeah.
Is it not?
but yeah, no, I'm
I
sorry
mean,
there
sometimes
was.
they use race as a
white devil.
as
But
a
then
tool,
how
as
did
a way
it-
of
White
putting people
devil.
against each other.
How did a supremacy then
So if
develop?
that were the case,
If
right,
that
why,
was
why
the
were
case?
white Jews the
Well,
ones who were the
let's
most
say
killed
the
in the
American
Holocaust
South.
by these racial
Have you
scientists?
read
Okay, wait.
Francis
20th century.
Cresswell's?
Wait.
Have you read Francis Cresswell's book?
Whose book?
Francis Cresswell, look her up. So she was a black scientist, social scientist, and what she did is she was trying to establish why the Jews were hated so much, and what she concluded was being treated as non-white, as in they were seen as a fixed mulatto class, as in through not being pure white. This was a contributing factor of why they were discriminated, and other stuff as well. But this was something that she pushed forward.
Well, I fundamentally disagree with her, and
Well,
I've
you-
read many books that would say other reasons for anti-Semitism.
Yeah.
But all I'm trying to say is,
Well, this is her book,
if
so
these
much.
racial scientists you're talking about, if race, skin colour was the biggest category by which they looked to divide society, the people who they killed proportionately, more of than anyone else, were a group who they believed were racially distinct but the same skin colour.
Yeah. Okay, guys, let me give an example, and it has a lot to do with what he said previously about the depictions that the Egyptians made of different races. They had, I remember very well, specific depiction.
know that.
They had one guy. They had like 4 people. One of them was described as Syrian, one of them as Mesopotamian, one of them as Egyptian, and
not
one
race.
of them as Nubian. They were calling the
Tribes,
region,
tribes.
the region, the people where they come
tribes, they're
from.
not tribes.
They were not,
They're not racist.
probably not specifically using race, but those differences is exactly what makes a race. Do you know what I mean?
No opinion.
It's what we were saying
No,
at the
but
beginning. It's
I
how you
think that's how it
categorise.
is in terms of
You can
race. You
categorise
can
it-
give, look, race is a word. You can give it a bad connotation, you can give it a
scientific
negative
category, that's what we
connotation,
need to
or you can
introduce
give it
it.
a positive connotation, like
It's a
whatever,
biological
different race, no
category.
matter. It's just a different.
it's
A
why
lot of
you
people don't
choose
use
to
the word race
categorize.
anymore, do they? There's ethnic group, ethnicity.
And that's just why you're choosing to categorise.
yeah.
You can categorise at this macro level up here and divide us into 3
So
categories:
if you- yeah.
Negroid, Mongoloid, and Caucasian.
Right,
Which
What
are-
about the Indians then?
But gentlemen,
No, I'm saying it's just
They'll
it's
be-
where
they'll
it's
be-
where
they'll
the
be
Red
mixed
Indians.
And
Are you-
They're done as a mixed group.
are you Native Americans?
Who?
The Native American Indians.
You're talking about
They,
Dr.
they were
Coon's
their,
work.
their own ethnicity. They were described as red people.
It's red people.
No, but if you're talking about Mongoloid, Caucasoid, and this kind of stuff,
Yeah,
right?
but
They
all-
would have been what was the Mongoloid? So anyone who's been among them.
What I was trying to describe with that
Chinese,
is people
Mongols,
can
Japanese,
categorise
Korean.
at different levels. They can categorise up here at the most simplistic level, or they can come down to what Raven's saying is a real local ethnic level.
Exactly.
Where and they bring in things like culture, so language comes into it, religion can come into it. But it's it's the category and where you choose to categorise. So it's not a conspiracy of people trying to manipulate
I'm
and
not
divide
saying
people.
it's a conspiracy.
It's just where societies choose
why.
to
Let me ask you a question.
categorise.
So what's your
But
question?
it's not.
asking
It's not.
why.
We have to introduce
reason behind
the
it.
history of
Describe people
biology
that
here.
are around us.
Biological science, eugenics.
Oh no, I think it's more than just description.
This gentleman's
Which
onto
is-
something.
I think it's more than
we
just
need to
yeah,
introduce
more
the
in which
dead
way?
end, the cul-de-sac of
Because a
race
white
theory
person isn't
within
actually white
biological
as in the
theory. It's
actual
not just
colour.
people
It's a
gathering
metaphor.
together. This was
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
this was quite
What do
respectable
you mean?
during
White
the
in actual
Victorian
colour?
era.
Of course.
Okay?
That's
Yeah,
what
eugenics
white
was
is based on. Colour.
Why do they
supported
base-
by the creators of
Let-
New Statesmen, upper class socialists, H.G. Wells, the great Irish. They talked about let's rid the strong of the weak. Why should we pay for the weak? Why should we just clean out the
You
poor
have
houses?
the same thing happening today, but it's just at a more local level. So when you speak of generation identity, they don't talk about the white race, they talk about European and Western culture, and they categorise it at a smaller level.
They're euphemising
but it's-
classic
yeah,
race
so
theory.
we're in agreement, but it's basically, to answer, it's not, in my opinion, a sinister ploy for they to control and divide the
I'm not
masses.
saying
Yeah?
it's they.
It's literally people looking at these categories, and whatever society chooses to categorize, whatever the flavour of the month is in that society at the moment.
I don't think it's that. I mean, come on. We have to recognise that the scientists who brought out eugenics, these were the leaders. These were very wealthy, rich people. Okay, science was the activity of the wealthy in the Victorian period. Okay, so it's not random people. Okay, which is what I'm hearing.
No, I'm saying it's society. And today, it can, because information's more available, it can be coming
but-
from the universities, or it can come in.
Fine. Today, but I think we're trying to get through the history of this. How did we get to where race exists and racism exists? That's where
And why is it that you're scared to say words in your workplace? Like,
So I'm afraid that's a legit. That is the fear of being stigmatised as a racist.
Are you
as a-
racist?
Am I a racist? No, I don't believe so.
That's a
Are
strange
you a
question.
racist?
I don't believe I have no.
I think only
Can you
a
be
fool
racist
would
against
say
white
yes.
people?
No.
A racist
So
and a fool at the same time.
say he believes he
Or a
can't
troll,
be
maybe a
racist.
troll.
That's why he's not a racist.
I can practice discrimination. Yes, I can practice discrimination.
If I go to South Africa
Yes,
and get shot because I'm white, is that racism?
that's discrimination.
Depends on the circumstances.
That's discrimination.
Depends on the
That's-
circumstances.
that's racist.
Come on, it
Because
depends
Because
on
what
the
system
circumstances.
can support that?
What's
What system?
Just,
South
so
Africa.
they say-
Would you not get no justice? Are you free from justice in that system? Like,
Are you free from just? If I shoot you here in the UK because you're a black man, I'm going to go to jail.
I hope so.
Yeah.
I tremendously
And if you shoot me in South Africa
If you get out
because
of the park.
I'm a white man, it's like that you'll go to jail. But
Come on.
But racism can exist. I could shoot you in this country based on skin colour, and you can shoot me in that country based on skin colour. They're both racist. The institutions in South Africa are predominantly black. The institutions in the UK are predominantly white. So your argument doesn't really hold.
what are you
stick.
saying? So what are you trying to say?
I'm trying to say you can be racist. I can be racist. You can be racist.
And for me, whether I could or couldn't wouldn't change anything in my mind.
No, but you just asked me, am I racist? I said no. I asked
Yeah.
you, are you racist? You said no. I asked,
Well,
can
the
you
re-
be racist against white
the reason
people?
I asked
You
is
said
because
no.
when I came here, you were saying that you were worried that when you talk in your workplace, you might offend other people.
I'll give you an example.
Go
I
ahead.
don't believe Tommy Robinson
wants
is
to have a long
racist.
career.
I believe Tommy Robinson has a huge prejudice against the Muslim people.
Right.
Huge prejudice. And I think that's an ugly prejudice. But I don't think he's a racist. He's called a racist. He's called a racist.
That wasn't
He made a good point.
I describe myself as a
He's
Zionist.
made a good point.
I
He
describe
said Muslims
myself.
are not a race.
Yeah, I agree.
So technically,
Racism-
no. Technically, he's not a racist, but he's a bigot.
But he's
still.
described. Yeah, I agree with that. I agree with
bigoted views
that.
against
But you're letting him off
He's
the
saying
hook.
the same thing as me.
I'd agree.
You're letting him off the hook. He is a racist because, not because the Muslims are a racist, which they're not. He's one of a number of people who are resurrecting the old racist lies. They're euphemizing him. They're bringing him up to date. They're looking for new targets. He is a racist.
Tommy
When you draw
Robinson?
He is a
comparisons
racist.
between two people of different colours and religions, you become a racist. Because what you're ideally saying is that I am better than him.
No, but what I'm saying.
But then we also have to understand that dog whistle politics, which is different, right?
Exactly.
So
Yeah,
for
exactly.
example,
And that's what he's doing.
Yes, for example, I'm not saying it's the same because I don't know him, but I'm saying is
Yeah.
if a whole lot of Muslims come and they're all from Pakistan and some are from India, all right, and I don't like brown people in this day and age, it might be hard to go, I don't like brown people, but I can bring up a new ideology.
The reason
to
I brought Tommy Robinson as an example because he has Sikhs on his campaign, he has black people on his campaign, he has ex-Muslims
Well, let me tell
on
you
his
something.
campaign.
Well, let's answer your question.
I don't think it makes sense. I know plenty of people here who are Arabs and Persians in race, but are not Muslims.
Yeah, I hear
I don't
you.
think the argument makes a
So
lot of
it would be
sense.
hard
Yeah,
to
So because Tommy Robinson has some mistaken members of his group who come from different ethnic groups, that means Tommy Robinson is off the hook of racism.
No, I never
don't
said
think
that.
he's- no, so
because
I-
he hates on a religion,
yeah.
not on a race.
He's still a bigot.
because
He
of
hates
that.
the group.
He's still a
He hates
prejudice.
the group.
Yeah, the
He's
group of
prejudiced
religious
against
people,
Muslims.
not of the race. You think if a white guy
You haven't listened
converted
to
to
what I've said.
if
I
a white
said
guy
obviously
converts
that
to
Muslims
Islam,
are not a race.
if a white
I've said that racists
I just
today
said about
have changed
dog
their
with politics,
game.
didn't I?
Right?
if a white guy converts to Islam, you think Tommy Robinson will like him?
No.
Because he hates religion of Islam.
And
he
if the
doesn't hate
Muslim
a
leaves,
specific
if the-
race.
if the brown Muslim
and I'm
leaves
saying
Islam.
that's the equivalent today of racism. It's the age-old teaching of hate about
This
on a
gentleman's
certain
onto
not
something again.
equivalent.
He seems to be onto
Religion,
something.
It's not.
religion is a choice.
So
I'll give you an
Race is
example.
not a choice.
I'll give you an example. Every single one of you
Shouldn't
should
quibble
be,
about these people.
Every single one of you should be free to criticise my religion as a Jew. There should be no. If you think the circumcision is primitive and barbaric, you should be free to say that. If you believe that I believe in a sky fairy, you should be able to say that. However insulting you want to be about my prophets, you should be free to say that. If you dislike my religion, that's absolutely fine. What you can't do is when it becomes problematic, is you form a prejudice against the people. And Muslims
It's
are
like
the people
all
in
Jews
my eyes.
because they're Jews.
Yeah,
Right,
What
and that's
about
Tommy
Zionism?
Robinson's
I
position.
agree, but it's not racism. It's different.
Zionism's
Well,
not
I-
a religion.
It's still bigotry.
So what is
Indeed
it
it's
then?
not.
Why are you holding back calling him a... I don't
Because
understand.
it's not based on race. You're saying categories are really important.
But the thing that you're not taking into account is that racism changes its face, changes how it works. Why do we have all these populist
This guy's
movements?
saying that at the pop.
Yeah, but it's
He's saying
always
that
We
at the
have all
pop.
these
race.
populist parties.
Okay, so-
They're not classically racist, but they're onto something different.
He's
They're
my spokesman.
If they're not classically racist,
dividing
they're not
people.
racist.
They're dividing people. They're sowing hatred.
Okay, so it's a social.
Hatred
Listen.
No,
Listen.
look, not
Is
all
a
hatred
Marxist,
is racist.
Is a Marxist
Have you heard
that goes
Tommy
against
Robinson's
fascism, is that
views on
racism?
Grenfell Tower?
Why don't
No,
we
no,
just
no,
stick
no, no,
with
no,
the-
no, it's
stick
really
with the
important.
example of the
No,
populist
it's-
movements in Europe.
It's really important.
well,
It's
he
really
thinks-
important
yeah, yeah.
because we're
Real
discussing
issue is
ideologies
immigration.
here.
Right.
And the
People
collectives
who've
which
been
form
here
around
a
these
weekend.
ideologies. Can we have one conversation at a time,
One
please?
voice, one voice.
Okay, the
don't
collectives
really
that
much care
form
about
around
I think it's
different
more
ideologies, yeah? So Nazis are a collective around the Nazi ideology, fascists around fascist ideology.
Classic racism, I'm going to agree with you. But the problem with the lot today is there's no big ideological idea. They're trying to construct it. They're coming in with different hatreds of different groups, and they've all got a common interest.
I don't think they are. I think they're all coming after one group. I think they're all coming after one group, and it's Muslims, and it's a prejudice, and it's Islamophobia, called whatever label you want to
What
give
about the
it, but it's a
gypsies? What about the
prejudice.
Romanis?
So that's completely... Tommy, the EDL are not against
No, I
gypsies.
asked you a question.
Yeah.
What about the gypsies? What about the Romanis?
So
Did
that
he
would
say
be...
something about them?
yes, in Romania, in Hungary, they're being.
I believe the gypsies
they're,
are one
they're
of the
having
most
their houses
I
burned
believe
down,
they're
they're
one.
being
So
thrown
can
out.
I respond? Can I respond? I believe the gypsies are one of the most persecuted people in history,
Right.
and it's based on
it's
their
not just
ethnic
Muslims.
group. Okay, so can I please just try and gypsies are an ethnic group. Muslims are not an ethnic group. Jews are an ethnic group. Muslims are not an ethnic group. You can categorize at different levels, but we're talking ethnic. Something that someone is born into and cannot help is different to an ideology.
You're correct, right?
Islam, like Judaism, is an ideology. Nazism is an ideology.
Okay.
Libertarianism is an ideology.
Will you agree-
Zionism is
and
an
will you
ideology.
agree-
Absolutely.
And will you agree with me that racism can operate across both categories?
No.
No, racism
they
can't
can't.
be
No.
about something that's
Racism-
not
okay,
about
well,
race.
what are you calling the people
Okay.
then? What are you calling the people if you're not calling them
Okay,
racist?
can I say, is Islamophobia sexism?
No, answer my
No, no,
question.
no. Is
if
it
they're not
sexism?
racist, what category
They-
are you putting them into?
Religious prejudice, or collective prejudice.
Religious prejudice. Is that strong enough, do you think?
So Muslims identify as a bit. I like the word Islamophobia. Many people don't like it because they say Islam is a religion and you should be free to criticize religion. There is a word that describes anti-Jewish prejudice. There is a word that describes
But that's
anti-Muslim prejudice.
What is that
Phobia
word against
from-
Jews?
That's
You never heard
phobia
that?
from the word
Anti-Semitism.
for
Ah,
fear.
no, I thought. No, I thought you would
I
say
thought we were
a
doing
different
something like that. I
word.
thought we were doing
No,
comedy.
no.
You know what I think he's
Seriously,
trying
I
to
thought
say
you would say a
No,
different
no. Some
word.
people do use the
You know
word
what I think he's
Judeophobia.
trying to say that the racists
Yeah, I thought
moved
you
the
would say
goal.
like Jewphobia
They
or
moved moved the goalposts. So it's no longer they use the old rhetoric and language. So now they may be attacking.
They haven't got jackboots on.
They
They
may be
haven't
just
got
attacking.
jackboots on.
Wait, let me finish. They may be just attacking Islam, but really, well and truly, they could just have a fixation towards people from South Asia.
The biggest, I would say, the
Yeah,
biggest
they
is
could,
that I'd
it's
say one of
possible.
the biggest Islamophobes in the park, someone who's actively campaigning against Islam, is Sarah. He's a black man.
Sarah?
But that's
Yeah,
irrelevant.
he does
He
video
never
after
came
video.
here again, did
Sir,
he?
the
I never-
National
Yeah,
Front.
yeah, he's
Sir,
quit
the
on the
National
park.
Front.
He has the show
National
called
Front
Black
in
Opinion,
France,
right?
traditionally anti-black, anti-Jewish.
Yeah.
Okay. It's now anti-Muslim, but it still has anti-Jewish.
Can racist be
So how do you
anti-Muslim? Yeah.
categorize all of that?
Yeah.
I would just say it's racist.
But it's not.
It is. You're trying to be,
If it's
what
not
are you
based
saying about
on
that
race-
group if you're going to use another group?
So I just gave you
Call
the
it
word
racist.
Islamophobia.
Yeah, but that's fear of Muslims. What about hatred of Muslims?
It's the same. It's the same concept.
It's
Is
too soft.
is
It's too soft a
homophobia
word.
fear of gays
It's
or
too
a
soft
hatred
a
of
word.
gays?
It's too soft a
No,
word.
no, no. So homophobia is okay, but Islamophobia is too
Yes,
soft.
like-
You
I don't
can't
know.
give a different meaning
If
to
you want to
racism
energize
just
people
because you
against
think
this,
that
it's much easier
Islamophobia
to
is
call
not
back
strong
on
enough
We're going to
of a
go in
word.
circles.
Racist.
Yeah.
We're going to go in circles,
Yeah.
and the reason is because I threw something out there, which is dog whistle politics, right? And I think if you're going to talk about racism and what you've just been talking about, that might be the way of how it works, all right? As in, I'm saying that you can't always use the same language that we used in the past. You see, does that make sense? You understand about anti-Semitism. People are always going to directly offend Jewish people how they did back in the Hitler's time, right? They're going to rechange the words. Are you aware of this?
No one's arguing with this.
Well, what I'm saying, in order to make this conversation make sense and to go somewhere, I think that's where the angle should take.
Okay, so let's go there. So
Yeah.
within the UK,
Yeah.
there is a growing movement, and you'll experience it in this park, of anti-Semitism coming from the Afro-Caribbean Black British community. Yeah.
What? Sorry.
Black community, Afro-Caribbean community, call it what you want, but people in this park,
In this park.
and but in wider society as well.
Okay.
I mean,
I was just going to ask, just for the sake of the conversation, can we define anti-Semitism? Just because I think sometimes what we tend to do is we tend to take certain criticisms, right, of say Israel in particular. And Israel is not. It's not.
No,
in its
I'm talking
innocent-
people
No,
denying
I
the
know, I
Holocaust.
understand,
I'm talking about people
I
saying that Jews are white devils. I'm talking about hardcore
You control your
anti-Semitism.
impulses and you control your
Impulses.
emotions.
What
for 2 seconds, 2 seconds, right?
It's just
I'm
answering the
asking you
question.
literally.
Well, we can
Let's
do Israel
define
Palestine
it so that we
afterwards.
can have a constructive
Well, it's been
conversation.
defined for us. There's an international definition which we can all check, but I'm sure
Yeah,
you
the IRA
reference it.
definition.
Yeah,
It's 14
so what
points in it.
definition are we going
So
by
we
in this
don't even have to go to
I think what he
IRA.
might be going, I could be wrong, is if someone criticizes Israel,
No one's talking Israel. I'm not talking about
we're
Israel.
getting out of the
That's
way.
what we're saying. We're getting that
Okay,
out of the way so that we can have a
moving that out
conversation
of the
about
way, when I'm not going to name people, but when people in this
Name
park
caller.
say that the Holocaust never happened, that the Jews have too much influence in the world, that the Jews run the financial system, that the Jews run the media, that the Jews
Is that
that's happening in this park from people with black skin,
okay?
and you can say that you can use the word anti-Semitism. You're saying use the word racism. I know.
So if I was to say that Jewish people control the media and they've got a big grasp on it, is that anti-Semitic?
yeah, because it's not true.
It's incorrect.
So,
I know, yeah.
but there's either anti-Semitic or incorrect, right? Are they both
Well,
the
it's
same?
both.
It's
But do
both.
Jews have a lot of power over the media?
No.
Far less than Christians, far less than white people.
I mean,
Right. So you're
Many
taking it
Jews
as a
are white.
negative connotation, right? So if you said that, black people have a grasp on, say, football, let's say, or sports, right? Which they don't. Yeah. Would that be a wrong thing to say?
So
Go ahead.
just to give you the history of anti-Semitism,
Go
so
ahead.
you understand why it's problematic. The reason the Nazi Party came to power and were able to kill so many Jews was because they said that the Jews had disproportionate power in Germany. There was the House of Rothschild, there were these banking families that they dragged Germany into, and it was by creating this what's called an anti-Semitic libel, but based on power and influence that the
Propaganda.
Jews have. That's how anti-black racism works in a different way. Islamophobia works in a different way.
They work
And
in
they
very
say-
similar ways.
I'm saying
it's
that
very similar as well.
I would say so. Anti-black racism was there. I mean, there is the aspect we're both considered foreigners.
There's certain stereotypes that are used to
Inferiority.
dehumanize certain people.
Which is the
That's
complete
what
opposite.
inferiority
Jews are seen as the superiority.
Subhumanity.
Absolutely.
That's a common.
That's it, yeah, it's a common theme.
But the fear is born from a different place, and it is a prejudice, but it's coming from a very different place. The lines which they used to justify murdering Jews were very different to the lines that the Ku Klux Klan used for killing blacks.
Well, the
Enough of
okay, the modalities
Yeah.
were different, but the objective is the same.
I was going to say a lot of the
Hit
The objective-
methodologies
the
are-
objective-
Hit the
I'll let John finish.
underdog and kill them with impunity.
I actually agree with the
So
gentleman.
I would.
It's been here a lot.
And I think you've taken it to its ultimate conclusion, and I agree that is where the Nazis took it. I don't think you have to believe in killing somebody to be a racist. I think the racists that are in this park that we debate regularly
Can be a
don't necessarily.
philosophical racist?
No, they definitely don't believe in killing us, but they may have. I meet people who are. This is the most anti-Semitic place I've ever come. I think most people here don't want to kill me.
Let's just to be clear and just to be frank, gentlemen, we were saying about basically making certain sects of humans being subhuman so that it's easier to dehumanize them and thus exterminate and make them expendable, yes? Can we agree that's the notion of what racism is what we're having in this conversation?
No,
yes?
because I don't believe you have to. Racism doesn't have to include wanting to exterminate somebody.
Okay.
Somebody can be prejudiced without wanting to take it to that ultimate
dehumanize,
conclusion.
Yeah, there's
dehumanize,
different
make them
levels
expendable.
of racism.
even-
But you
I
said
think
it is the
even-
logical conclusion.
So,
it's the logical end point if everything goes in the way of the
It is.
racist.
I would even rephrase that. I say it is an end point.
Right.
If they get extremized enough, they will eventually want to exterminate other
If they have
races.
total power, and they have their own way. Yeah.
Could it be that what these people believe, they believe it to be true? So you say that you might not want to be exterminated, but if some people approach you saying that Jewish people own the media, they own this, could it be that they actually believe that rather than they hate you and they make up a story to try to discriminate against you?
I think that's the case with many racists.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. I think that's what I'm
so
saying.
you said the methodology used to demonize blacks and Jews
It's
is
different.
very dissimilar. How have you come to that conclusion when the
So,
exact techniques used in Nazi Germany are the exact techniques used within the Jim Crow-like era in order to demonize blacks? The whole kind of like stereotyping of Jews being hypersexual,
Okay.
coming for the European woman, all of that was used for everyone
So there are
else.
definitely- there are
so when
definitely
we're talking
similarities,
about
but there are
but
others as well.
this is exactly what we're trying to point out. We're trying to point out the fact that it's all within
And they
the same
they came from the same source, which is eugenics, which was at one
Absolutely.
time Victorian respectable
Absolutely,
science.
absolutely.
Okay, and you had hard and you had soft eugenics. Soft eugenics, you basically said we'll stop them breeding. Hard eugenics, you kill them, and therefore you stop them breeding. And this was respectable science. In the
And
Victorian period.
no one's arguing with that. That's not what the argument is.
You said that this is the most anti-Semitic place that you've ever been to.
It's one of the
And
most anti-Semitic places I've come.
It's a little bit laughable because
Really?
one, for a first, we've been seeing a rise of anti-Semitic like attacks and references and all of this like insult. Where is it coming mostly from? Most of these attacks are coming from right-wing people.
No.
Are they not?
No.
Joe, the last few shootings in America alone have
Thank
been
you.
right-wing
Thank you.
shootings.
So stop.
Have been
Rajiv,
right-wing
Rajiv, stop. You're wrong.
From now to man, say it straight. Man, don't listen to BBC. Man, don't listen to ITV.
In America,
Listen.
far-right anti-Semitism is the most dangerous form of anti-Semitism. In the Middle East, Islamic motivated anti-Semitism is the biggest form. There was 1 million Jews that used to live in the Middle East. They've been driven out. There's now 3,000 left.
Is that right-wing Islamic or left-wing
No
Islamic?
such
Or
thing
they
as
all the same?
left-wing or right-wing Islamic. I'm talking
because
about
this is
Islamic,
the
not political philosophy.
This is one of the biggest problems. You take
What is-
Islam as
Right-wing meaning small government.
there are certain people
Left-wing
who are
meaning-
fundamentalists.